1. So it's not preaching, it's just sharing a few thoughts about the Bible, and for those who are worried, a few thoughts from the Bible and my personal life. In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. So a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. The man's name was Elimelech. His wife's name was Naomi. And the names of the 2 sons were Mahlon and Kilian. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem, Judah. And they went to Moab and lived there. Now, Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. They married Moabite women, one named Orpah and the other one Ruth. After they had lived there about 10 years, both Mahlon and Kilian had also died, and Naomi was left without her 2 sons and her husband. When Naomi heard in Moab that the Lord had come to the aid of his people and providing food for them, she and her daughters-in-law prepared to return home from there. With her 2 daughters-in-law, she left the place where she had been living and set out on the road that would take them back to the land of Judah. Then Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show you kindness, as you have shown kindness to your dead husbands and to me. May the Lord grant that each of you will find rest in the home of another husband." Then she kissed them goodbye, and they wept out, and said to her, "We will go back with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have any more sons who could become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. I am too old to have another husband, even if I thought there was still hope for me. Even if I had a husband tonight and then gave birth to sons. Would you wait until they grew up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters, it is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand has turned against me." And at this they wept aloud again. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. But Ruth replied, "Don't urge me to leave you, or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you from me." When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. So the 2 women went on until they came to Bethlehem. When they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them, and the women exclaimed, "Can this be Naomi?" "Don't call me Naomi," she told them. "Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me." So Naomi returned from Moab accomplished by Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, arriving in Bethlehem as the barley harvest was beginning. Many people can influence us in our journey, during our journey on this earth. Mothers are one of them. Today we'll be thinking of two kinds of mothers: birth mothers and spiritual mothers. So there is another passage in the New Testament, in Luke chapter 2, verses 4 to 7. We don't need to open for that, so I will read it for you. So Joseph also went up to the town of Nazareth of Galilee, to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for a baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in clothes and placed him in manger, because there was no guest room available for them. Chosen by God, Mary was a chosen mother. To be a mother is a gift of God. If you are a mother here today, you will know that whether your son or daughter, whether they're a baby, a toddler, a child, a teenager, a young adult, or grown up who has his or her own children, there will always be your child. So I remember when I was a little girl and I overheard a conversation from my grandmother and grandfather. They were speaking about the child, and I thought they were speaking about me. So I went into the conversation and I said, "Are you speaking about me?" And they said, No, we're speaking about your mother. And I said, "Well, why are you calling her a child?" And they said, "That's because she is a child. She's always going to be a child." So that's, in that point, I wasn't able to understand. So, in this world, there are many broken relationships and hurts. Some women will give birth, but not be interested in their children. It's quite sad. Others will long to have a child, but never give birth. We don't have answers for all the struggles in the world, but God knows all the answers. We can only pray and support each other when we're in that difficult situation. So about my mother, I loved her, and I had a very special bond with her. However, I had a closer relationship with my grandmother. And we had the same moral standards, the same political views, the same things to laugh at. So she knew about God, as she had a religious education, which was just about Christianity in the school. When she was very young, that's before the communists. So my parents, however, grew in a communist era. So my grandmother was not born again Christian, though. So I was happy to share the gospel with her, which she accepted. She prayed for me and supported me in my faith. However, I don't think she was the best mother-in-law. But before she died, she found strength to ask my mother for her forgiveness. So when it comes to spiritual mothers, I look first to an example in the Bible. And this is the example we have in Ruth and her mother-in-law, who passed her faith on to her daughter-in-law. And I'll read a little bit of that passage I read earlier. But Ruth replied, "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you from me." What a wonderful example of love. So many theologians will look at these verses and compare Ruth's statement with our relationship with God when we are fully devoted to Him. This is so true, isn't it? So I would like to look at this in a different perspective, looking up to the spiritual mothers and fathers, if we like. As I mentioned earlier about my grandmother, the reputation of Bulgarian mothers-in-law is very similar to the Greek ones. Frank, you're here. And possible other cultures too, as I hear from my workplace about some of the ladies' mothers-in-law. So the mother and son's relationship is ever so strong, and when the daughter-in-law comes, she's like that extra person who has to agree with everything the mother-in-law says, just to please that mother-in-law. However, through my friends, such as probably a lot of you might fancy, and Nadia, and another great examples, Christian examples. So I was privileged to observe all these relationships with the mother-in-law, and I knew there was a hope for the other mothers-in-law. So I am grateful also to have had a wonderful mother-in-law, a woman of a great example for me. So even though she did not go regularly to church, she did not attend regularly, she came with Alan and me to church. And I saw in her a person who deeply cared about other people. So there are many examples and observation of her as a person. But I remember one time when Alan and I were in Edgware, in Alan's home church, and everybody was rushing to have tea and coffee at the end. She just quietly spotted a woman who was sitting quietly and looking sad, and so she went to her and talked to her. So I was thinking, she doesn't even know this woman. But she went and she talked, and later on I was glad she went because the woman was terminally ill. She needed someone to listen to her. So I'm going to go back to Ruth Chapter 1, when the mother-in-law's influence doesn't initially look very positive. We see a hardened and bitter Naomi, as she calls herself, Mara, encouraging her daughter-in-law to repent backwards, away from God. So when Naomi says, "Return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have more sons who could become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. I am too old to have another husband." And so she goes on. But humble Ruth repented by turning to a people, a place, and a God who weren't her own. The story of Ruth teaches us that hardships are opportunities to turn to God in faith. So despite this, Naomi was an example of a godly woman and a mother-in-law. Like Job, in the darkest point of her life, she wavered because her suffering was unbearable. Ruth's admiration of her mother-in-law's life was exemplified by her care and loyalty towards her. Through Naomi's quiet lifestyle, Ruth learned about God and accepted Him as Lord. What do we learn from Ruth and Naomi's friendship? Their friendship was bounded in a mutual love of God. Naomi spoke to Ruth as a fellow God-fearer. Ruth, in turn, could understand and give godly comparison and strength back to her. Our friendship should be built upon the firm foundation and love for the Lord. Naomi guides Ruth through her conversation, encouraging Ruth to maintain her devotion, and raises the child from whom Ruth gives birth. May all those mothers who give us birth and raise us, as well as those who are spiritual mothers, be blessed today. May God bless the expecting mothers. May we be compassionate and loving towards the mothers who lost a child or children, cannot bear a child or won't have the opportunity to, and keep them in our thoughts and prayers. May we be like Naomi and guide and support those who need our spiritual support and friendship. May the song of Jesus' mother be a song today. And Mary said, "My soul glorifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Saviour. For he has been mindful and of the humble state of his servant. From now on, all generations will call me blessed. For the Mighty One has done great things for me. Holy is his name. He has performed mighty deeds with his arm. He has scattered those who are proud in their inmost thoughts. He has brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things, but has sent the rich away empty. He has helped his servant Israel, remembering to be merciful to Abraham and his descendants forever, just as he promised our ancestors." Happy Mother's Day, everyone.